Welcome to Mystery Inn, where every stay leaves something behind. Story 1. The man inside my house never looked for me. This happened back when I was still living alone in a small rental house outside town. It was one of those quiet places where nothing ever happened. Just rows of old houses, dead streets at night, and people who minded their business. I had a few days off work that week, and honestly, I'd spent most of the day doing absolutely nothing. Watching TV. Making food, sitting outside listening to the rain. By around 10 p.m., the storm had gotten pretty bad. I remember sitting on the porch watching water run down the street when I suddenly heard my house phone ringing inside. I almost ignored it. Nobody really called the house phone anymore. But eventually I got up and walked inside. The caller ID just said, "Unknown number." I stared at it for a few seconds before letting it ring out. Something about it already felt weird. Maybe because it was so late. Maybe because the storm outside made everything feel isolated. I don't know. I went back outside anyway. At first the rain relaxed me, but after a while, something shifted. You ever get that feeling where your brain suddenly tells you something is wrong, even though nothing's happened yet? That's exactly what this felt like. The neighborhood suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. I started looking around more, watching the dark road, watching the neighboring houses, and the longer I sat there, the worse the feeling got. Eventually, I got uncomfortable enough to go back inside and lock the door. About 20 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same unknown number. This time I actually picked the receiver up for a second, then changed my mind and hung up. I kept telling myself it was probably spam or someone drunk dialing the wrong number. Outside, thunder shook the windows. The storm kept getting worse. By around 11 p.m., I was laying on the couch half watching TV when someone slammed on my front door. Not a normal knock. A hard, aggressive bang that made me jump up instantly. I froze. Then came another bang. I slowly walked over and looked through the peephole. There was a man standing outside in the rain wearing a black hooded jacket. I couldn't see his face properly, but something about the way he stood there bothered me immediately. He wasn't knocking like someone who needed help. He stood close to the door, tilting his head slightly, like he was listening to what was happening inside my house. I quietly backed away and grabbed the phone. I turned the volume down completely before dialing 911. I wasn't even fully panicking yet. I just wanted police aware that someone suspicious was outside. But right as I started the call, the man hit the door again. This time it sounded metallic, like something hard slammed into the wood. Then it happened again. The entire door frame shook. That's when I realized he wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to get in. I hung up and ran to the bathroom near the hallway. It was the only room with a lock. About 10 seconds later, the front door burst open. Rain immediately flooded the sound inside the house. For almost a full minute, I heard nothing else. No footsteps, no movement, just rain. And honestly, that silence terrified me more than anything, because it meant he was standing there listening. Then finally, I heard slow footsteps moving through the hallway. Calm, patient, like he wasn't in a rush at all. He checked every room downstairs one by one. Then eventually I heard him head back toward the front door. The door closed. For 1 second, I thought he'd left. Then I heard footsteps again, still inside the house, this time heading upstairs. I sat in that bathroom for what felt like forever. The upstairs floor creaked occasionally, but mostly silence. I kept thinking about running for the phone again, but every time I almost moved, I imagined him suddenly appearing at the bottom of the stairs. Then finally, through the storm outside, I heard voices yelling, "Police!" I burst out of the bathroom immediately. 2 officers were standing at my front porch. Apparently dispatch sent them after the disconnected 911 call. I told them someone was upstairs. The officers drew their weapons and cleared the second floor. A minute later, they brought the guy down. And what disturbed me most was how calm he looked. According to the officers, they found him laying on my bed upstairs, just relaxing, like he lived there. He'd apparently placed a knife and a handgun neatly on the dresser beside him, waiting. The police arrested him immediately, but I never got answers. I never found out if he targeted me specifically. or if I was just unlucky enough to be home that night. Honestly, I don't know which possibility scares me more. Story 2. The whistling outside my window. A few years ago, my parents left town for a weekend, and I stayed home alone. At the time, I thought it was great. No rules, no interruptions, just me gaming all night. That Saturday, it rained nonstop from morning until dark. The whole house felt gloomy. Around the afternoon, I ended up falling asleep downstairs on the couch. When I woke up, the sky outside looked almost black. The storm had gotten even worse. And that's when I heard someone whistling outside. Soft, slow, right near the front porch. At first I assumed it was a delivery guy, or maybe someone walking by in the rain. But the whistling stopped directly outside my front door, and stayed there. I waited. No knock, no doorbell, nothing. Eventually curiosity got the better of me. I peeked through the blinds. There was a man standing on the porch. Average-looking guy, denim jacket, wet hair hanging over his face. But he wasn't doing anything. He just stood there staring at the door. Not moving. Not checking his phone. Nothing. 5 whole minutes passed like that. Then finally, he stepped off the porch and disappeared back into the rain, still whistling. The whole thing creeped me out badly. But eventually I convinced myself, maybe he was just sheltering from the weather. That night, I stayed upstairs gaming with friends until around 1 a.m. Eventually, everyone logged off, and I went to bed. About an hour later, I woke up to a loud thump beside my head. Then another. Something was hitting my bedroom window. I moved the curtain slightly and looked down outside. A man stood below the window in the rain. I couldn't fully see his face, but I immediately thought of the guy from earlier. He reached into his pocket, then threw something else at the glass. The impact cracked loudly against the window. I backed away immediately. He kept doing it over and over. And honestly, I panicked. I decided maybe if I got downstairs, I could take a picture through another window for police. So I ran downstairs quietly with my phone. But once I got to the side window downstairs, everything outside looked pitch black. Too dark to see anything clearly. And suddenly, the throwing upstairs stopped. Completely. That awful feeling hit my stomach instantly. Then, out of nowhere, a figure sprinted straight at the downstairs window. The man slammed into the glass so hard it cracked immediately. I stumbled backward screaming. Then he started breaking the window. I grabbed my phone and called 911 while he kept yelling outside. Over and over. Hello? Hello? His voice sounded wrong. Deep. Aggressive. Like he was enjoying scaring me. He moved around the house, hitting different windows while trying to get inside. Thankfully, police arrived fast. The second the guy saw the lights, he ran straight into the woods behind the neighborhood. They never found him. And to this day, I still don't know whether he knew I was home alone, or if I was simply the wrong house at the wrong time. Story 3. The woman at the hotel was running from someone. Years ago, I worked security at a small roadside hotel outside town. The place wasn't huge. Most nights it was just me and the receptionist. The hotel sat near empty farmland, so nights were usually dead quiet. One stormy night around 10 p.m., a young woman came into the hotel alone. She looked exhausted, completely soaked from the rain. No luggage, no bags, just a purse. She checked into a room upstairs and disappeared without saying much. About an hour later, I noticed a man walking through the parking lot toward the hotel. He looked rough, drenched from the storm, and there was something deeply unsettling about him. Not aggressive exactly, just wrong. He stopped directly in front of me near the entrance. His eyes flicked down toward the holster on my belt, then back up at me. "How late are you guys open?" he asked. I pointed at the giant 24-hour sign beside the door. Then he asked another strange question. "Someone always working here this late?" At that point, I started getting suspicious. It felt less like casual conversation and more like he was checking how protected the place was. Then suddenly, he just walked away back into the rain. Didn't even go inside. A couple hours passed. Around 2 a.m. the storm eased up a little, so I finally walked partway through the parking lot. That's when I saw him again, walking into the hotel. The second he noticed me watching him, He looked away. I immediately hurried inside after him, but when I entered the lobby, he was gone. Only the receptionist remained at the desk. She told me a strange man had just asked for a spare room key, claiming his wife was staying there. But when she asked for ID, he got irritated and walked off toward the stairs. I headed upstairs immediately. The second I opened the hallway door, I saw him. He stood outside one of the hotel rooms holding a large knife, violently banging on the door, completely furious. He was so focused on the room, he didn't even notice me at first. I drew my weapon and shouted at him to drop the knife. When he turned toward me, his expression honestly scared the hell out of me. His eyes looked completely unhinged. For a moment, I genuinely thought he might charge me, but eventually he dropped the knife. Police arrived minutes later and arrested him. And behind the hotel room door was the same exhausted woman from earlier. Apparently, she'd been running from him. The police never told me the full story, but they did confirm something terrifying afterward. The man had followed her to the hotel from the moment she arrived. He stayed outside in the storm for hours watching the building, waiting for an opportunity. And if I'd reached that hallway even 30 seconds later, that cheap hotel room door probably would have given out. I still think about that sometimes, because that night could have ended very differently.